Hey everybody, this is Jason. We're going to talk a little bit about creating a pattern. The pattern that we're going to create is actually modeled after this carpet. If you've ever seen the movie The Shining, it's a terrifying movie, though not as scary as it was probably when it came out in the 70s, because nowadays we've seen all kinds of terrible things in our movies with people getting hacked and sawed and sewn back together. Anyway, this is a really scary movie for those of you who've already seen it when they were little kids and probably shouldn't have. This carpet brings back memories, and whenever I see this pattern, it kind of freaks me out a little bit. Anyway, we're going to recreate this pattern in Illustrator. That's what we're working on today. So, first things first is we're going to create a new, we'll go ahead and use common, and we're going to change the artboard size of this to match a size that's going to be fitting all of the repeating elements that we're going to be creating. And so there's a bit of math involved. The math's already been worked out, but it has to be a specific size in order to make the repeating elements work correctly. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose our artboard tool. Boop. And we're going to change the width of this to 602 and the height to 600. I know 602 is not the same. When we think of a repeating pattern, we think of something that's perfectly square. But for this, it has to be 602. Cool. Now you notice when I have the artboard artboard tool selected, I have some of these options here. So not only can I change the width and height, but I can also change the position of the artboard relative to the marker point. So the marker point is decided here. So this reference point right now is set to the upper left-hand corner. That means 0, 0 on the X and Y axis corresponds with wherever this is. So if I click over here, this is going to be 6020, because now this is the far right corner. At the top line is along the 0 Y axis, and along the 0 Y axis, and X, which is going across, that is 602 pixels from 0. So this 0 is over here. I'm going to move. My mouse is really slow for some reason. Let's move this out of the way. There we go. Okay, I'm going to turn the rulers on too. That'll probably help things. So we can see here, there's 0 and there's 0. This corner right here is at 0, 0. This is basically just the registration of where these numbers are being measured from. So if you have a need for, let's say, this thing to be on the other side of the 0, then you would make this minus 602. Oops, sorry. Keep that at 602. We could register this and then make this minus 602, and it would put it on the left side, because we're measuring from the upper left-hand corner. So now this point right here is 602 pixels from this point right here. Okay, hopefully that's got you even more confused. That's my job, is to totally confuse you as much as possible. Okay, before we start, it's a good idea to know about Illustrator's workspace configurator. So depending on what you're using Illustrator for, you can choose different arrangements of panels to help accomplish the things that they've set out here. This isn't the end-all be-all reference for everyone that's doing typography or tracing or printing and proofing. But for us, we're going to be doing Essentials Classics. And if you choose Essentials Classics and your screen still doesn't look like mine, click this drop down again and choose Reset Essentials Classic. There we go. Q. Now, I want this to be like that. There we go. Sweet. We'll talk about panels another day. Okay, so we have an artboard 602 by 600. We've turned on our rulers by hitting Command or Control R. And we want to also make sure that our color space, oops, is set to RGB. Okay, and we are going to edit our preferences. So on the Mac, it's Illustrator and then choose Preferences. I think on the PC, it's Edit, not Preferences. I think it's Options, maybe. I don't remember, but it's under the Edit menu. It might even be called Preferences. And we're going to choose Guides and Grid. Now we're going to set our grid line to every 1 pixel and our subdivisions as 1. This means that we can, when we use our arrow keys to align objects, that they will snap to the pixels, and everything that we create and drag will also snap to those pixels. And just to make sure of that, let's go to View and make sure Snap to Pixel, Snap to Point, and then Snap to Grid is enabled. Okay, so we're going to start by creating our main element that's going to be repeating. So I'm going to choose the rectangle tool. And before I create my shape, I'm going to change my colors. Over here on the toolbar, we have our fill and then the stroke color. And whichever one is forward will receive whatever the choice that you make over here is. So if I want a, let's say, yellow stroke, I bring the stroke indicator forward and then I click on a color. If I want no stroke, I can click none here, or can also click on the / key. Same is true for this right here. With the fill color forward, whatever color I choose is going to be that color. And I'm going to create my rectangle. So rectangle tool selected, I'm going to click on the artboard and I'm going to manually type in 86 wide by 106 pixels high. Cool. Okay, now I want to center this in the very center of this artboard here. And by default, while this shape is selected, I have my centering tools up here. But I want to make sure that I'm aligning to the artboard and not to the selection. If I have multiple items, let's say I'll make a copy of this here, and I have all of those selected and I choose to align to the selection, I can line them all up with each other. But if I want it centered on the artboard, I have to align to the artboard. And so now everything's going to line up on the artboard, right in the center. Cool. And just have that one shape. Awesome. Okay, so moving on. All right, I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to choose my pen tool, and if I long press on the pen tool, I get this Add Anchor Point tool. If you don't see the Add Anchor Point tool, be sure and reset to Essentials Classic, and it should show that Anchor Point tool. And I'm just going to click right there and right there. Okay. And if I hover over, I can, with the direct selection tool, should be able to click on that and move those. That's how I know that I actually added those points to this shape. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to center these guys. Let's say I put my anchor point in and it kind of ended up over here, which is not in the middle. So using that direct selection tool, I can select that, or I can drag select that point. And I can use my alignment tools to align that point. Now, if I click this right now, it's actually going to align it to the center of the page, the artboard, and we don't want to do that. So we need to change this here to selection. And I want to align that point. Oh, why is that? What happened? There we go. And I click this horizontal alignment. And it doesn't work. Oh, not to selection. Idiot. Artboard. There we go. Select that one. Horizontal. There we go. Now these guys are right in the center. Cool. All right. And now with the direct selection tool, what I want to do is I want to move these anchor points at the same time. So I'm going to drag select both of those with the direct selection tool. And I'm going to move them 26 pixels up, or negative. So I'm going to go to Object, Transform, Move, and horizontal is 0. And my vertical is going to be -26. And you should see that shape right there. Make sure preview is selected. And then click OK. Cool. Okay, so now we're going to give this a top outline. So I'm going to make a copy of this. And I'm going to do that by Command or Control C. And then Command or Control F, which pastes it right back in the exact same spot that the original was copied from. And I'm going to move this now 14 pixels up. Okay. Might not look like anything happened, but if you go to outline mode, Command or Control Y, you can see that yes, you have two shapes there. Cool. I'm going to give this one a black fill. I'm going to send it to back. Awesome. I'm going to take this guy now, Control C, Control F, or Command C and Command F, and I'm going to move it again in the opposite direction now. I'm going to move 14 pixels positively. There we go. Make its fill color black. And we're going to send this one to the back as well. Object, Arrange, Send to back. Okay. Can I pause this video? I don't think I can. Shoot. Okay, I'm going to pause. Let's save this right now. We'll call it Okay, so next up is we've got 3 shapes here. And what we want to do is have 3 shapes, but what we see visually, not have anything with this background going on there. So we can separate all of these if we want to using the Pathfinder tool. Like that. Or we can also do a trim, which takes and whatever's in front knocks out whatever's behind it. So this is pretty effective. So I'm going to drag select all 3 of those shapes there, and I'm actually going to use the trim. And then anytime you use the Pathfinder on something, it automatically groups those shapes together. So Command or Control Shift G, or you can go to Object and then Ungroup, but I just ungrouped them, so they are ungrouped. And so now you can see I have 3 distinct pieces here. So awesome. All right, cool. Now I'm going to zoom out here. And I'm going to bring a guide down to the very top of this. Cool. Okay. And then I'm going to bring another guide down. And notice that that guide is dark blue. And then it changes to that cyan, that light blue. That means that when it's cyan, that it's not selected. And when it's dark blue, it means it is selected. So I actually can select this and I can move it if I want or delete it. So I'm going to drag a new guide right on top of the first guide. And then I'm going to move it down 50 pixels. There we go. Cool. The reason for that is I'm going to create my little rectangle that's eventually going to be the octagon, or sorry, the hexagon. That's the defining centerpiece of this shape. So I'm going to create this rectangle, and it's going to be 26 by 14. And we're going to give it a fill color of, oops, wrong one. Kind of that burnt orange there. And then I also want to horizontally center this shape also. So I'm going to align, make sure I'm aligning to the artboard, and then do that guide there. Now it's in the middle. Okay, so I can get rid of this guide and also get rid of that guide if I want. Let's save this. Okay, and I need to add 2 more points to this. So I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to use the pen tool, long press, and the add anchor point tool, just like we used on the bigger rectangle. I'm going to, well, let's select this shape first. I'm going to add a point there and a point there. Whoop. Cool. Okay, now to make sure that these are in the middle, I need to select the point and then horizontally align them. This one's kind of off to the left there. Boop. And that centers it. Awesome. Okay, and then I'm going to select that point, hold down my shift key, do an additive select where I select one thing, hold down the shift key, and then click on another thing. Oh, not for this one, sorry. Just this first point. And we're going to move, transform move. This is going to go up 8 pixels, so we're going to go -8. Cool. And then we're going to select this guy here, and we're going to object, transform move. And we're going to go down, so that's +8 pixels. Cool. There's our hexagon. You know, I want that to be a little bit darker. There we go. That makes better sense. Okay, I'm going to save, Control or Command S. Okay, now we're going to make this, we're going to give this thing a big outline here. We could use the stroke and then break it apart, but it's a lot easier to use the offset path option. So with this shape selected, I'm going to go to Object, Path, and Offset Path. and I'm going to offset by 12 pixels. Cool. Now, joins in miter, the joins determine the corners. So whenever corners are created, miter means it is a non-curve or non-radius corner. Round is a round corner. And then bevel is kind of a compromise between round and miter. So we want miter. So we're matching the exact shape that we're offsetting. Click OK. And then we're going to give this a black fill color. And so now this is effectively the same thickness as that guy right here. It's 12 pixels. All right, save. Okay, we're going to group these together. So select them using additive select. So I'm going to click on one, hold down the shift key, click on the other one, and then object group, or you can do command or control G. Okay, so these are now grouped together. That means when I move them, they're going to move together. I'm going to make a copy with command or control C, and then command or control C F to paste it right back in place. Or you can also do this where you select on a shape with the selection tool and hold down the Alt key. See how my pointer changes to the double arrowhead there? If I click and drag, I've made a copy of this. And the cool thing is that holding down the Alt key, clicking and dragging, if you hold down the Shift key, then it will constrain the movement to 90-degree increments. So I'm going to come all the way till my points on my hexagon line up with the edge of this shape. I'm going to let go of the mouse and then let go of the Shift and the Alt. Cool. Okay, now the top of this thing needs to be 74 pixels from the top of that guy right there. So I can drag out a guide again and then click on this and shift and drag it up so that it snaps to that guide. And then I can go over here to transform. I could go to object and move. We've done that already. Let's try a new thing. So if this needs to be 74 pixels down, I can click in here and hit the plus sign and say, okay, go 74 more. Whoop, and there it is. Math. Kind of cool. Okay, and then I'm going to make a copy of this guy right over here on the other side. So select it, hold down the Alt key, click, drag to the right, and then hold down the Shift key. Doot. There we go. Okay, now we're going to use the rectangle tool again. We're going to create a new shape, and we're going to give this shape a black fill. And I'm just going to click here. This shape is going to be 12 pixels wide and 62 pixels high. And I'm going to center it on my artboard, and then I'm going to drag it up, oops, so that the bottom of it lines up with the point of this chevron right here and the point of that chevron there. Okay, and now we're going to take this and I'm going to make a copy of it. Hold down the Alt key, click and drag it over here. And I'm going to align it to the top of that hexagon. Click and drag and make a copy over here. Cool. Let's save that. And we don't have to worry that this thing is sticking out here. If you wanted to get, particular about it, you could combine these and knock these out, but it's just a lot easier to just leave it there, because what we're going to do is use a clip to hide all the stuff that we don't want to see. Okay, so I'm going to back out just a smidge here, and I'm going to choose my rectangle tool. I'm going to click up here, And I'm going to create a rectangle that is 86 pixels wide, which was I believe the original width of our shape, 160 pixels high. Okay, so this should encapsulate everything. I want to make sure it snaps to that guide up there, and then I'm going to center it on the page. And let's give it like some weird color like yellow. Okay. I'm going to zoom out here. I'm going to select my guide and delete it. And then I'm going to drag select all of this here. And I'm going to choose Object, Clipping Mask, Make. Or you can do Control or Command 7. Cool. Now we have this shape. And you notice that this line on the left and the right, they look kind of thin. The reason for that is when we make a copy of this, those two thinner lines combine to make the thicker line. Okay. So I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to move it all the way to the left. I'm going to zoom in, hold down my Alt key, click and drag to the right while holding Shift, and that snaps there. And then I can hit Control or Command D and just make a couple copies of this. And I want it to go off the page here. So we have one extra. We're going to have a bleed here. Cool. All right, I'm going to drag select all of these, Command or Control G to group them together. And I am going to push this up. And I'm going to go into outline mode, Control Y, and then I'm going to just use my arrows until those guys line up. So what's happening is that the black chevron from this row up here is overlapping the black chevron from this guy right here. And it's really important that those pixels line up, because even if it's one off, it actually looks kind of right. But this is what we did earlier when I did this today, and our pattern didn't line up because it was a couple pixels off because I tried to eyeball it. So we want to make sure that we get this right. So again, I'm going to Alt, click, and drag holding the Shift key, zoom back in, Control Y, and then I'm just going to use my arrow keys up or down depending on the case to line that up. Okay. And let's go down now. Alt click drag holding down the Shift key, outline mode, get those guys to line up. I think I can just do this too. Alt click and drag holding down the Shift key. Cool. Oh. All right, so I'm going to select everything, group it, and I'm going to horizontally center and now also vertically center. We still have, let's ungroup everything, Control Shift G or Command Shift G. We have one more we've got to lay out here. Cool. Okay, so now Control or Command A to select everything, Control or Command G to group them together, and then I'm going to vertically center, horizontally center, and we are good to go. All right. So after that's all lined up and everything is centered, we're going to create a new rectangle that's going to be 602 pixels wide and 600 pixels high. Let's give it a fill color of yellow. And we will align this right in the center. And then with my selection tool, I will drag select all of this stuff and we'll do another clipping mask. Command or Control 7. And so now this should work. let's see, if I make a copy of this and drag down, yes, totally works. Yay! Okay, so the final step now, save that, to make it a pattern is select this, and then from the object menu, choose pattern, and then make. Okay. And then we want to manually change the width and the height to 602 by 600. And everything looks gorgeous. Now the reason this is faded back here, or has kind of a 50% transparency, is this is just a preview. It's showing you what this pattern is going to look like if you actually choose to use it. So it looks right to me, so I think we're good. All the measurements are correct anyway, so I know that it's right on the money. Okay, cool. So I can close these pattern out. Boop, boop. Let's go back here. And that pattern is now in my artboard, and so I can, or sorry, in my swatches. So let's do this. Let's make a new artboard over here. And let's use our pen tool, and let's some kind of interesting path there. And then with that selected, we can click on new pattern fill, and it will fill that with our pattern. Groovy. Cool. Now all we need is a little kid riding a tricycle. And the twins standing down here at the end waiting to terrify everyone. So there we go. That is making the shining carpet as a pattern. Okay. Bye.